Hello. How are you? Is this so interesting to film a video with like myself in it? Like seeing myself in it? I love the Clark Kent vibe that's happening right here. How are you? How are you feeling? I'm feeling precarious. That's the word for today. Well, for right now at least. It's precarious. My bed is moving. Precarious. Why precarious? There's a podcast. Actually, I haven't listened to this podcast, but it's a podcast that I've like heard referenced, and I like the title of it. It's called Not Skinny But Not Fat. And I feel precarious because it's like, oh, I don't feel bad, but I don't necessarily feel amazing. And that's kind of like where I'm at. Is that like somewhere in between of, yeah, I don't feel, I'm looking at myself right now. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to be looking at you, but we'll figure it out. But yeah, I feel precarious, and it's just somewhere in between. I will say, however, the caffeine from this Red Bull is adding to my feeling of being good, like feeling nice, feeling great. How are you? You know? I think what I want to do for this video today is record what I would want to hear if I'm feeling the way that I'm feeling. But if you are feeling the way that I'm feeling, where you're like, I don't feel great, when I don't feel, terrible, I feel somewhere in between. I actually felt pretty crappy earlier. Not like super crappy, but like almost crappy, where I could kind of tell that I was like, ugh, this could go south pretty quickly. But then I went on a walk, and I did not go on a walk because I like self-motivated myself to go on a walk. I kind of went on a walk out of necessity because the road, I guess my street got like tarred today. And so I like had to walk to the store. And I think that's one thing I'd want to say is it's okay if the things that you do that are good for yourself are out of necessity and not out of motivation. Like, the good thing is not any less good because you needed to do it instead of wanted to do it. Was the walk beneficial for me? Sure. Was it any less beneficial because I needed to take the walk as opposed to like wanting to take the walk? I don't think so, no. And I think it's really interesting because before I realized I needed to, I kind of tried to motivate myself. I was like, well, don't drive to the store. It's like right there. Just walk. But then I was like, no, girl. Like, I'm just going to drive. I'm already in this car. I'm going to drive. And then I got out there and saw the road was hard, and I turned back around and I was like, okay, now I have to walk. The motivation didn't get me to do it. Oh, there's a quote. I might read that quote in a minute. The motivation didn't get me to do it, but the fact that I needed to do it, I don't think detracts from the benefits I got from doing it, including this drink, which is making me feel good. Another benefit that I got from being out there, and this is a benefit again, that came from needing to do something as opposed to wanting to do something. Because I think sometimes maybe there's this idea that, I think it's already been said, it's not better because like, oh, I made myself, what was I listening to? It's like, there's a girl on YouTube, her name is Khadijah. And I think her last name is spelled Mbowe, like Mbowe. She's a Canadian YouTuber, and she does like commentary on like social commentary and like video essays. But I was watching a video of hers yesterday, and she talked about how it's a video that was discussing kind of like Gossip Girl and like the old one versus the new one. And she talked about how there's a part of the video where she talks about this idea of that people have sometimes, that things that come by through really hard work are more valuable than things that come by, I guess, so to speak, without that much work. And I think this is the same idea where it's like, oh, I motivated myself to clean my apartment and I motivated myself to film this video. I did not motivate myself to film this video. I am caffeinated, and also I watched someone else's video, and watching his video and reading the comments kind of made me feel like energized to film this one, because his approach, his name is Patrick, I believe, and his channel is called Patrick's ASMR. His approach to ASMR, I just thought was so amazing, and I really liked his content, and it kind of galvanized me to film this one. And it's actually part of why I think my channel came together anyway. Like, I wanted to make this channel. I felt really good about it. And then just seeing that someone was just kind of like doing it and not like really stressing about it, so to speak, at least it seems that way, I really liked. And it made me want to be here and want to do this. And, like, I did not motivate myself to do this, but is there a benefit already from filming this video and talking and doing something? Absolutely. And is it any less beneficial because I relied on a little bit of caffeine and external, impetus or like stimuli to get me there? I don't think so. But yeah, my train of thought was about something, and then I kind of went away from it, but hopefully it all comes together in the end. But yeah, so I was gonna be like, oh, what would I want to hear today when I'm like not feeling great but not feeling crappy? I guess the first thing is something I've already said, where it's like, however you get there is how you get there. and that's okay. Another benefit that came from taking my walk, which was a necessary walk as opposed to a motivated walk, is the light that's in this apartment right now. Because prior to taking my walk, it was pretty dark in here. And I got back from being out there and kind of let the light in. And so that's another benefit of the necessary walk. In the ASMR videos that I watch, I really like, I don't think, hold on. I really like the we can hear activity from the neighbors. I really like this sound. Hold on, I think I'm gonna turn up the echo thing a little bit. Hold on. Maybe a little bit higher. Let's go back down. But I really like that sound of like the bloop, 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 bloop. I have this in here. I'm gonna put it back in here because it just feels better drinking it out of this. And also, we get sounds. There's another thing I think I would want to hear is it's okay. It kind of goes back to the first thing of like necessary versus motivation, like necessity versus motivation. Another thing I would want to hear is that it's really, really okay if growth is not linear. I feel like I'm gonna cry now. And that's okay too. And I say that because for me at least, I can be idealistic a little bit. I really like things to like maybe not go a certain way. Let me give you a good example. I live in Los Angeles. I'm thankful that I live here. It was super important for me to live here. I love living here. I really, really like, this is like my home. I have like a California like driver's license. My license plate says California. I'm a resident of California, and I like that's really important to me, and I really value that I live here. But oh my goodness, train of thought. I literally had it, and then I went into this whole California thing. Let's go back. Let's double back. Okay, we're talking about things being linear and growth and whatever. I got it. We're back. So I was going to tell you a story about kind of me being idealistic. So yes, I live in California, but before I moved here, I had this idea of what living here would be like, or what, and this is an idea I had when I was like younger, and it just grew and grew. But you would hear all these stories of people like going on auditions in the morning and then bartending at night, or like, is burping allowed in ASMR? I feel like I've said that in almost like every video that I've made. This is like my third or fourth video that I'm making. I think I've said that every single time. Is like, is burping allowed? We're back. I did not lose my train of thought. We're back. But you would hear like, you know, Jennifer Aniston or like whoever. I'm really thinking of Jennifer Aniston. Or like the Madeline, like the girl from Riverdale, like, you know, the redhead from Riverdale. Like you'd hear people like her and like all these stories of like, oh yeah, I would like work at a coffee shop and then I would go to like my audition in like the afternoon or something. And to me, hearing all those stories like over and over and over kind of gave me this like idea. So when you think of an idea, an ideal, this idea of like what making it would look like. I literally did not even know what I was trying to make it in, but I wanted to make it, and somehow making it involved bartending or waitressing or working in a coffee shop and going to auditions, even though I had no idea of like what that would look like or why that would be a thing. Like, it just to me was like, that's the thing you do. You bartend and you go to auditions, and then at some point you win an Emmy. I don't even drink. I've never worked in a coffee shop. I don't think so. I've had a lot of jobs, but I don't think I've ever worked in a coffee shop. I don't think I've ever been to an audition. I have auditioned for stuff and gotten one, like, but I don't think I've ever, like, been to one audition. Actually, I think I have, but this was like a long time ago. And then also, but when in all those auditions, I was like never working at a coffee shop or bartending. And so I say all of that to say, to me, I had this idea of what life in Los Angeles and California would look like, and my life here is really nothing like it. Nothing like it. In a lot of ways, it's so much better. In a lot of ways, it has not met expectation. And in a lot of ways, it's just new because I neither had an expectation or, you know, like either a good or a bad expectation, you know. So it's like, if it's better, it's surpassed expectation. If it's like not meeting expectation, then it's like, okay. And then in some ways, it's just completely surprising because there was just no way I would have thought of certain things before I moved here. I say all of that to say it's okay if your growth, whatever that looks like for you, is not linear. You know? If it's not ideal, again, it goes back to like your necessity versus motivation. And for me, I didn't lose my train of thought. I'm just trying to figure out like what story I'm trying to tell myself about myself. It's okay if it's not linear, you know, if your growth is not linear, if your day-to-day is not linear, like, it's really okay. It's so okay. It's so okay. Like, it's so okay. My little thing just had to, it's a nice sound. There's a dog barking in the background. That's another thing too. Like, I think part of why I haven't, like, it's been a week since I filmed a video, and part of that is idealism a little bit, because I wanted it to be like perfectly quiet in my neighborhood and perfectly, everything to be perfect and to look a certain way and feel a certain way, have a certain vibe, and to know exactly what I was going to say. Like, even before I, figured out what this channel, like, what I was gonna, like, well, not, before I started this channel, I literally had an idea of what it would be and how it would be. I've made like 4 videos now. This is my 5th video, maybe. I think it's like my 4th video. I've never once done what I thought this channel was going to be about in like 4 or 3 videos or something. Never once done it. But I'm still doing it. And I had this whole idea, and it was going to be this thing, and it's okay if your growth isn't linear. That's like really okay. It's okay if I don't even want to call it progress, but it's just okay if you're movement. We're going to call it movement. We're going to call it movement. It's okay if your movement isn't linear. Yeah. That really is getting to me. I feel like I was going to cry just now. Because I really am that kind of person who not only would I want it to be linear, it's like, what do you mean taking 1 step forward and 2 steps back? That's like, it's absurd. Like, what do you mean? So I'm not only a person who would want to take like 2 steps forward and 1 step forward, but I'm also a person who would want to take 2 steps forward and 1 step forward in the exact way that I thought I was going to take those steps, even if I had no idea what it meant. So I'm the exact person who'd like, I want to bartend and go to an audition and live in a crappy small apartment and drive a beat up car and like work at a coffee shop and have 6 jobs because it's what I heard another person said they did in a podcast. Me. So whether or not my ideals were always good, whatever good is, I would like really want to rigidly stick to them. And move in some forward motion based on these ideals. Whatever I thought, it's like, you get the job at the coffee shop, then maybe you get your crappy car, you get your crappy apartment, and then you go on your audition, and then you have a breakdown, and then you feel like you want to move back home, and then right at the day like you were gonna move, like, we hear all these things in people's stories that we collect through podcasts or interviews or communicating with our friends, or like hearsay or books or magazines and articles online. We collect all of these things, or for me, I would collect all of these things to form kind of like a notion of what the road was supposed to be. And it's like, right on the day when you were like, I'm finally gonna move back home, you get a magical phone call that says, hey, you got like the audition, or you got the job that you never auditioned for, and your life is gonna change. And it's like, this is just one example that I'm given. I'm literally not even an actor. I just live in Los Angeles. But I think the reason it's getting to me is just because in a lot of ways my life is good. It's really, I'm not even going to say really good. My life is good. My life is good. There's a podcast with Bill Simmons and John Hamm. I think it might be from 2014 or 15. Anyway, it's around the time they're talking about it's around, I think, the time that the Ben Affleck movie called The Town came out. And actually that movie came out in 2010, I think. I think it came out in like November, not November. I think it came out in like September of or October of 2010. And so I think this podcast might either be in 2010 or 2011. It's a long time ago. But in the podcast, John Hamm, he talks about at some point how people, in his observation, were kind of becoming so obsessed with things being great. Like, oh my God, that was the greatest restaurant I've ever been to. Oh my God, it was the greatest show I've ever seen. It was the greatest, like, drink I've ever had. It was the greatest first kiss. It was like the greatest date. It was the greatest, like, shopping experience. Like, it was the greatest. And he was like, dude, like, sometimes it's okay for things to be good. Like, when did it become bad for things to be good? Like, oh yeah, like that was a good game. Like, oh, how was the game? Yeah, it was good. Like, how was dinner? Oh, yeah, it was good. Like, to say that now, in a lot of ways, to some people might kind of be like, oh, it was good. Like, oh, what'd you think about, like, my book? Like, oh yeah, it was good. It was good. Like, And that has always stuck with me. I listened to that podcast like a long time ago, and it has always stuck with me. That idea of just like, it's good. And in a lot of ways, my life is good. There's a plane. That happens a lot. And to me, that's not a bad thing. Not even while I'm filming an ASMR video, because it could add to atmosphere and ambience and vibes. But yeah, in a lot of ways, my life is good. And we're not even gonna talk about the ways in which it's the opposite of that. Not because it's bad to talk about those things, but because I would rather right now just focus on the fact that in a lot of ways my life is good. And if you're listening, in what ways is your life good? We're gonna burp. Should we? Mm-hmm. It's like, I'm a person. People burp. Come on. In what ways is your life good? And I definitely know that I'm the kind of person who would like hear someone else say that and be like, fuck you. And I'm like hesitant to cuss a little bit, but it's like, I would definitely be like, dude, fuck you. What do you mean? But I think there's merit to kind of being like, in what ways is my life good? And if I could think of, okay, the fact that I can film this video right now at the time that I want, in my own space, leaning against my own bed, talking into a mic that I purchased myself, looking into a camera that I purchased myself, with the hum of an air purifier that I purchased myself. I don't know why I'm talking about things I've purchased, but it was valuable to me to live in a place that had like quality air, and now I have that. The fact that all of that is happening Like, those are good things. And they're the more, like, there's other things where you could be like, it could feel eye rolly sometimes. I'm like, yeah, I'm alive and I have good health and I don't live in like a, war torn country, and I live in a, generally progressive state, and I am American, and I like can vote, and like there's all these things that could be very eye rolly. I'm like, oh yeah, sure, those are good things. Like I woke up this morning, it's like whatever, but it's like I woke up this morning, you know. More importantly, I did not wake up this morning. I woke up this afternoon. And to have the kind of life where you can wake up in the afternoon, for me, is good. Yeah. Yeah. So what's good in your life? It doesn't have to be everything. It could literally be just like one thing. It doesn't have to be the goodest thing. It could just be like, oh yeah, that's good. Like, that's good. And I can definitely think back to moments in my life where I would have been like, nothing is good, and asking me about that is ridiculous, and you should be tarred and feathered for daring to ask me about what in my life is good when nothing is good. But even in those moments, it's interesting to like think back to a moment when I would have been like really like repellent to a question like that. In those moments, thinking back, I can, even though it like makes me cringe to be like, nothing was good about that time. There were totally good things about that time. Whether or not I would like to recognize them, there were definitely good things about that time. I think we have another plane coming through. I wonder where they're going. So there was a time when I did not have my own space. And I think someone's coming up the stairs. Yep. And there was a time I did not have my own space. And if you asked me what was good about